Hello and welcome to FDT-TV, the Premier League's premier, premium, pompous, any other words beginning with P, podcast. Here we are talking everything football. My name is Mike. Thanks very much for joining it. I am joined every week by I'm running out of words to describe you, Ian. I'm just going to say I'm joined by Ian, West Ham and Arsenal fans, not respectively. West Ham and Arsenal fans, you can see we can see you support by the
It's a bit so random. I can't figure it out. Then
So yes, here we are talking this week, or rounded up this week's action in the Premier League. Not only the Premier League, but big sporting events as well. I'm sure there's going to be one that Ian mentions a bit later on later on in the podcast. But we'll dive straight into it. Manchester United, Carabao Cup winners. It was the Carabao Cup final yesterday, and Manchester United went out 2-0 winners. It was a bit of controversy, I suppose, for one of the goals. Some people are saying it was blatantly offside and VAR up to their old tricks again. But I've got to be honest, I think United were deserved winners for it. I think Newcastle started quite brightly for about 10-15 minutes, and Karius, true to I think his Liverpool form, was a bit of a disappointment, and I think once we saw him on the team sheet, it was only going to be one winner for that game. Any thoughts on the game, Ian?
I do feel sorry for Newcastle because they've done the job getting there, and then their goalkeeper, who is phenomenal, is banned, and then their backup, who is also a decent goalkeeper, can't play because he's played for the opposition in that tournament. I just feel a bit sorry for him in that sense. But yeah, they did well getting there. I don't think it's going to be few and far between now going forward. I think we're going to see Newcastle in more finals of things as they build, because they are a good team. They've been struggling for goals recently though, which is also not good. But yeah, I think the Casemiro goal was offside. They only drew one line, and there were a number of fouls that the ref gave for Manchester United but didn't give the other way around. So I think it was a little bit heavily weighted in that respect, but deservedly so. They did then score another, and I think overall it was probably a fair result. So yeah, it's one of them. Their quadruple is still on.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Obviously, still in the FA Cup. I can't remember if they're Europa League. It is Europa, of course it is, because they just beat Barcelona, didn't they? Yeah. And also the Premier League as well. I think they're only about 5 or 8 points off the top, but obviously we're still sitting at the top, lovely at the moment, 2 points clear, and we've actually got our game in hand tomorrow as well. Not tomorrow, on Wednesday, which should bring us up to hopefully 5 points clear at the top of the league, but after the last performance against Everton, we'll never know, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. You briefly touched on it there, a moment of stupidity from Nick Pope in the last game.
Yeah.
Do you think that the game would have been different had he been in goal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those the 2 goals that went in, I think he would have, not necessarily to say that they wouldn't have lost, but I think he would have saved those 2, or at least pushed them back out. Not necessarily say he would be able to keep hold of them, but yeah, I think it would. It's a different game, isn't it? When your goalkeeper is completely understanding of the team in front of him, he's Matt Sharp. It's up versus someone who hasn't played since 2021. Do you know what I mean? It's goalkeeping is a skill set, but when they're not fresh and they're not Matt Sharp, it's like you can't expect a striker to come in after not playing for 2 years and score you a hat trick in the first game.
Yeah. Did you see any of the warm up of him spilling a few shots from the coaches or whatever? So I see it on social media yesterday. I think it was either halfway through the game or it was after the game. I was just looking through social media and stuff, and you see a couple of the coaches and that kicking balls at him. First one, he goes down to his knees and it kind of fumbles through his hand, very much like at the Champions League final that he did. The other one, I think it was to his left hand side, made a meal of it again, and I was like, fucking hell. Like, if I was a Newcastle fan watching that at the start of the game, I would have just left. I really would have. Yes. Yeah.
He's unfortunate in the sense of his last big game in England was that Champions League final.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he went out on hot time, and I think his confidence had taken a bit of a knock there. But then to come in and have to play another high pressure game against a team that are really firing,
Yeah.
I think he's unfortunate. I mean, it takes a lot to be able to go, yeah, okay, I'm in the right mindset to do that. But I do think the key talking point from the game, which really did make me laugh, was Roy Keane. I don't know if you see his comments or Eric Ten Hag afterwards. He told him he should resign.
I want for his dance. Yeah.
His dance with Rantley and Garnacho, which I thought was really funny. He's been dying out for another Manchester United trophy. And as soon as you get one, now you need to resign. You can't be doing that.
No, I mean, fair play to him. It was, I mean, in terms of a comparison, I mean, you look at the position that United were in. I think when Ten Hag took over the team, there was a few question marks, and I suppose to some degree you can still ask those questions because, I mean, not so much recently, but they have shown periods of lapses in concentration and not as prolific as they have been in recent weeks. Obviously, Rashford, since he's come back from the World Cup, has been absolutely phenomenal. No questions about that. And I see something as well that Alex Ferguson has come out and said that effectively that Manchester United need to stop being so reliant on Rashford and goals need to start coming from other positions as well, which again is fair enough. But do you think, when you look at the start that Arteta had to Ten Hag, who would you say is the better manager, or would you say it's kind of like horses for courses?
It's a difficult one because there's merits and demerits for both managers, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think to a certain extent, Ten Hag has had a more difficult job in his first season than Arteta did in that. I don't think it's fair to judge them over Arteta's 3 to his 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of the problems he's had to overcome, I don't think he necessarily would have been able to. This is Arteta in his early tenure.
Mm-hmm.
The Ronaldo situation, to go head on with the powerhouse of world football that is Ronaldo, and go, but then don't play. I'm not bothered. I think it takes some nuts, because if that don't come off, then you've sunk your own ship, really.
Yeah.
But say that there are other things which I think Arteta did, which Ten Hag maybe wouldn't. But it's all about how the two different clubs are run very differently. But I think to this point, for me, although there are some other managers who have done really well this season, he's got to be in with manager of the season. Certainly at the moment. I mean, he's the first to lift a trophy. The things he's had to overcome. The rot had set in very deep at Manchester United, and you have to look at it and go, holy, all right, he's brought in Casemiro and he's brought in Anthony, but mostly that's the same squad as it was last year. And they couldn't string together a couple of wins, could they? Under the other geezer. So I think in that sense, Ten Hag's a better manager, but Arteta has very quickly created a new culture at Arsenal to looks like he's going to be successful for the long term. Now, I imagine Manchester United go, well, he's doing that at the minute, but I think give him another 2 years. Let's see where he gets to, and then ask the question again, because I do think it's going to go back to that sort of 90s, early 2000s of Manchester United and Arsenal are the teams that are going to be battling it out. I can just see that coming back round.
Funny enough, that was actually going to be one of my questions, because again, I saw some posts on social media that was very much of that ilk, to say, looking at the way that the two teams are performing. I mean, let's not forget as well, obviously, that Manchester City have been one of the mainstays in the Premier League certainly within the last 10 years or so, when they first lifted it back in, I think it was the 11-12 season. But to win it, I think it was at four times out of five, 4 times in the last 5 seasons. They're only 2 points behind us currently. So I think if you're looking at the table from the last couple of seasons, I'd say it was definitely a 2-horse race, Liverpool, Man City. But it's nice to see that other teams around them are now starting to strengthen, but that strengthen in ways where I suppose the academy players are getting more attention, more game time. Obviously, there's got to be that trust within some of the academy players, which I think for the likes of Saka and Nketiah, to a degree, Reece Nelson, obviously I know he's injured at the moment, been out on a successful loan spell, but certainly from my perspective, there's been games where you have the younger generation wanting to push through and kind of replicate in that same sort of form, but when they're given the opportunity, i.e. in the Europa League and the League Cup, have kind of fallen short through various reasons. And I think, but it's good to see that they are getting that opportunities. And you've got some players at United, some players at City, you've got players at Spurs, you've got players at not so much Liverpool. I think Liverpool's an exception of that. It's very much, I suppose, like the Chelsea model from 5-10 years ago when they were bringing through those youth players. That we're starting to see the benefits for. I'd say even more so on an England perspective as well.
Yes. Oh, definitely. I think Chelsea have tried to fast track that because some of their really good young players have left for various reasons, not stayed on through that transition period, not being able to sign new contracts, things like that, in that little interim sort of 2 or 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gone out and bought a load of talent, which is really young. So they've sort of tried to fast track that. So I think give Chelsea a season and they're going to be there as well with that exciting young team. I mean, I'm sure we'll get onto that in a bit. But for me, they're dying out for a striker. But once they've got that, I think all of a sudden you're going to see a different Chelsea team.
I completely agree, and that does actually lead us very nicely into nice little segue into Chelsea. Chelsea played Spurs yesterday, just before the Carabao Cup final. Now, Chelsea, I believe, haven't lost against Spurs in the last 8 meetings between them. So 6 wins, 2 draws. It's the first time that Tottenham have beaten them. Chelsea have scored 6 goals in the last 12 games in the Premier League. It's very worrying times for Chelsea fans at the moment. And I know, obviously, I can speak from experience over the last couple of years. There are times where you wonder whether the appointments of the manager are the right appointments. Now, as you just mentioned, Chelsea are in desperate need of a striker. They have got Aubameyang, obviously, in their ranks at the moment. Signed him not too long ago. Was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Obviously, with his prolific record at Arsenal, not so much towards the end of his career, but obviously went over to Barcelona and started finding the back of the net again. Then returned back to the Premier League for unfinished business or whatever, and has come up a bit of a cropper in the Premier League and has been dropped from the Champions League squad, and isn't really seem to be making a bit of an impact. Now, the question I heard on TalkSport earlier is what's going wrong at Chelsea. Now, I don't want to be cynical, but could we put Chelsea's downturn in form because of the bad seed in amongst the ranks? I know they've obviously recruited quite heavily in the last transfer window, so there's going to be an adjustment period for these players, etc., for them to gel with their teammates or whatever. But I find it too coincidental for the form that we were in when Aubameyang was with us towards the end, and the results from looking at how Chelsea are performing. Or is my mind just completely far fetched, and Chelsea are just going through a bit of a shit period.
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Aubameyang was a Thomas Tuchel signing. He signed him 2 days later. Tuchel was sacked. And I do think there is that down in tools element of it, which is why Graham Potter said he was dropped from the Champions League squad. And he said in his pre-match press conference, he's on the bench yet. That's because his attitude in training, the way he's trained, the effort he's putting in, means that he deserves a place in today's squad. So the difficulty is with that is clearly he hasn't been training as well as that larger squad. There are a number of young players there who will be putting in some effort to try and make a name for themselves. As you said, when a new player comes in, it takes them time to gel. They've brought in 20 new players. It's going to take them a little bit of time to not only gel to a new club, new surroundings, but find out the new manager what he wants to do. This, that, and the other. You think? Let's put it this way: that first season Arteta that was in charge of Arsenal, there were some real ropey weeks. I know, obviously, not to the same extent, but there was some real ropey results and games where you go, this guy hasn't got a clue. Now, when you look at the Chelsea side of things, I think all the new players, new manager coming in, they've had some really bad injuries. When you look at their injuries, Kante's still injured. Reece James was out for ages. Thiago Silva and Koulibaly have both had injuries. The one player who I think really would have benefited this season, Armand Broja, who was at Southampton last year, I think, and we tried to sign him in the summer, is injured. Big lump of a striker, exactly what they needed, can play with his ball to feet, really good at passing off to other players, and knows where the goal is. Had he not been injured, I think they would have been able to score. But what was apparent within that Tottenham game is they were putting balls into the box. There was a fair few decent crosses going. Kai Havertz isn't a striker. João Felix isn't a striker. They're the player to play just off the striker. I mean, I don't know if there was any effort to try and bring Lukaku back in January. I don't know. But they what I think they need to do is just start pinging them at goalkeepers from outside the box. That they're trying to play this really fancy football, and some of the football they are playing is really top quality, but they're just missing that sort of knife edge. And I think if they just shoot from distance, they're going to score a few goals. Confidence goes up. People then find themselves in the right positions naturally. There are a few runs which look like Havertz could have put in that extra 2% to get to the ball first, but just didn't. And I don't know whether that's because he's worried about getting injured or thinking, I'm going to miss another chance. I don't know. But I don't. It's a hard one because do you go, right, we're going to have to change the manager, then that's another upheaval, or do you go with the Arsenal side of things where no, we're going to keep him in place and we're going to give him a number of things, because I think you can see what he's doing. He's changing the squad a lot. That I don't think they've played the same 11 this season in consecutive games, but that comes with having a big squad of big name players. They all want to play, and if you don't play them, they're going to start throwing toys out the pram. So I think it's finding that sweet spot of getting your best team together, get a little bit of confidence, getting rid of a few bad apples, because Aubameyang, I think, is one, but I think there's a few others in there. Getting rid of a few maybe Asian players who are, this is not how we used to do things. Sort of that maybe struggling with that transition to change, and then build from there. I mean, one of the reasons Bowie said is it Bowie that you pronounce it, the owner of Chelsea, said that he brought Graham Potter in is because he wanted all the strings to be pulled in one direction, and he likes what he's done with Brighton, bringing through young players. So I think, yes, all right, the crowd are wanting success instantly, and Chelsea have been used to that. If it's not working, sack the manager, and it works. And then 6 months later, you sack that manager. I think, in a certain respect, if they gave someone a decent length of time with the resource, because Chelsea's academy is top notch. Since Jose sort of revamped it that first time round, it's built from there, and now they're reaping the rewards. Sorry, of of that happening. And I think it's just a case of letting someone work, install that culture, and moving from there. You bring in Ancelotti to that, or you bring in Pochettino, they're all going to have the same issue. I've got too big a squad. I can't keep everyone happy, and we're lacking in confidence. No one. It's just letting go with it. As soon as they win 3 on the trot, they'll be singing Grand Potter's praises. And it's just a case that I think they get like Southampton losing at home to Southampton wasn't good. It was a James Ward free kick. The free kick was phenomenal. But they had 6 chances at the other end. They just couldn't eat their dinner. And had that been another day, it would have been a trumping with a consolation goal at the other end. I just think, say, injuries, bad apples, new squad, new manager. There's a new owners. It's a lot of changes around that club, that squad, backroom stuff, everything. You've got to let the dust settle, and then go, okay, where do we go from here? And change a little bit at a time. You can't twist every knob and hope to see the effect of it straight away.
Yeah,
it's small tweak, isn't it?
I mean, very much so from the stuff I've been listening to on TalkSport. When you're after these results, obviously you're getting passionate fans calling up and essentially saying that the Potter's in out of his depth, and they want change. Chelsea aren't a project team. They need. They're a team very much built on success over the last few years, or certainly under the Abramovich era. I think from my perspective, I think more teams need to be adapting to this newer model by giving managers time. I know ultimately it could cost teams relegation, etc. So I get why there is the necessity. I suppose necessity is the wrong word, but why they do change the managers up, because ultimately it's as a results-driven business, as we've said on so many occasions, and if things aren't working, then you do need to pull the trigger. I think for I'm just going to use the big 6 as an example. I think it becomes a lot easier a lot easier in the long term. The short term, obviously, you're going to have to take the abuse and all this sort of stuff. But if you're consistent with your message that it's gonna be a long term project, I think fans need to be on board with that. And I tell you, the changing point for a lot of fans, I think, has been that All or Nothing documentary, because it's very difficult for people to see what's going on inside the club. Now, I get that it was only a short, relatively speaking, documentary in terms of the number of games that are played, but from seeing the crazy tactics from the manager for playing You'll Never Walk Alone or whatever, trying to build the players' anticipation for the atmosphere and all this sort of stuff, but seeing how passionate the manager was from wanting to get that, how the backroom staff work with injured players, how they get some psychologists, or the some psychology behind if a player's not performing, going and holding one-to-one sessions with it, all that sort of stuff, and ultimately starting to see some success. I know, obviously, we missed out on the Champions League, but I think that was a massive eye-opener for Arsenal fans, for the majority of people. But given that time, I mean, I think the Arteta was given a contract extension just before missing out on top 4, or just after missing out on top 4. And a lot of people were like, well, what are you doing? He's unsuccessful. We finished 6th, 8th and 8th. We've got progressively worse. But again, I think by getting rid of all that dead wood that we had on the books, some of the recruitment that we've made over the last couple of years has been absolutely phenomenal. Yep. And it's working. And I just wonder if the big 6, if they were in that position, again, Manchester United, I know they've had changes of managers or whatever, but Manchester United...
they gave Solskjaer 3 seasons, didn't they? And then
Exactly.
when this really isn't working anymore, now it's time to change. They've given him enough time to see if there is that positive change in it, or there is that ethic. I'm sure the board at Chelsea will be having conversation with Graham Potter to say, okay, we're not scoring. What's the answer? And if he goes, I don't know, then he's out the door. Because if you don't know how to fix it, or you can't self-reflect in that way, then you're not the right man for the job. But I think with Graham Potter, that they will. I do think they will stick with him. They I think, do I? I think if they go out of the Champions League, then he's in danger. But what I have to cast your mind back to is when Abramovich had all those sanctions put on him just over a year ago. He could have done one of two things. He could have said, "Okay, seize my assets. I don't care. Let it sit and rot," and Chelsea would have gone out of business. He didn't. He sold it for pennies on the dollar of what he could have got for it. When you look at what Manchester United is going for, with the caveat that the new owner has to pump X amount of million into it. I think it was $1 billion over the next 4 years or 5 years in transfers. That was one of the caveats to it. There's not many people in the world that would be prepared to do that. Todd Bowie's come in with his other people. They're throwing money at it. You can't fault them for that. They're already looking at ground expansions and extensions, which is what Abramovich was doing for ages. Looks like it's now going to get through because the government actually like these ones rather than the previous owner. So they could have had someone who come in and went, yeah, I'm not actually going to do that though. I'm not going to spend any money on it. We're just going to sit and see what happens. And I've paid $3 billion for it. I'm going to just rake some money back out of it. I'm going to sell the rights to the stadium. It's not going to be called Stamford Bridge anymore. Or they could have gone out of business. So I think having a bit of a bad season with all this changing upheaval and spending 600 million, I've never heard a club that are so mad about spending so much money. Oh, we spent 600 million yet we can't win. Well, no, you've got to give them that time to gel. And I think you're right. A lot of football fans see it as on a Saturday we turn up and we lose. That's it. We were shit. They paid too much money. There's a lot more that goes into it than just turning up on a Saturday. There is all the training in the week. There is all the background. There is the nutrition. There is the this, the that, the other. And yeah, I think you're right. I think had there been a all or nothing in there this season, I think it would have been very, very interesting. I don't think there is, but yeah, I think it would have helped Chelsea fans understand what the problems are, and that they're not as simple as throw money at anyone. I think a lot of younger fans, which Chelsea fans seem to be, are very much, well, I can go and buy all those players on FIFA and we win every week.
Yeah.
It's not going to FIFA. These are people. It's a little bit more difficult than that.
Yeah, I was going to say I know it's going to make me sound like a proper old fart, and I know I am an old fart, but just, I think that's why I get so aggravated by social media, because a lot of the people that you see all these horrible comments coming out about the club. I mean, as well as we're doing this season, we've the draws or whatever, or the wins that or the losses that we've picked up. You can see people going in already, and I know we mentioned this already about it potentially being troll accounts or whatever, but just coming out and saying, no, Mikel Arteta's not good enough for the job. I mean, we're in the best position that we've been in for 20 years. We're in with a shout for the title, and last season we finished 8th. Last season we finished 6th. It's so frustrating because I think a lot of these younger fans, as you mentioned, feel like it's a game of FIFA Ultimate Team or Championship Manager or something like that, and it becomes so frustrating. And they're like, "Oh, why don't you just throw an extra £3 million at it? We could have got him in that." And there's a part of me that wants to go up to these people and slap them metaphorically and say to them, "Okay, what's your favourite car? Lamborghini. Okay, go out and buy it. No, you can't go buy it. Why haven't you? Why? You haven't got any money.
When
Okay,
that's only a tenth of the cost of what you're saying to throw at it.
exactly.
Yeah.
You've only got £4.50 to your name, or yeah. I don't get how these people are so stupid. I know it's a slightly different or an exaggerated comparison or whatever, but even if go out and buy that Fiesta, you can't do it on finance. You've got to go out and buy it. No, you can't afford it. Well, fucking get real. This is it's a business. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm going to stop being an old git and ranting. We'll move on very swiftly to the next subject. So, obviously, we just mentioned about the potential of what did Chelsea do with the new manager. One team that we have seen recently that have made a recent change is Leeds appointed Javi Grazia as a new manager. And the reason why I kind of wanted to go into this is because it ties nicely into my next subject. But we have seen, obviously, Javi Grazia appointed as Leeds manager and picked up their first win at the weekend. Do you think that's a good appointment for Leeds?
I think it'll be an interesting appointment. He did well at Watford with a struggling Watford team. They finished their highest in the league with him, and I think they got to a League Cup final as well, I want to say. I think he will change it a little bit. Leeds have got some good players, but again, they're very reliant on Patrick Bamford for goals. So it's a difficult one. I think he will get them playing a decent brand of football, and be tricky to come up against now. But is it? How many games left we got this season? 15 games?
Yeah, something like
that. Is that enough to instill a new philosophy completely, or is it a case of, right, let's get some points on the board and then start building from there? Their first game is against Chelsea, I believe. Oh no, they've got Fulham in the cup this week, in the FA Cup midweek. So I think the Chelsea game could be interesting, because if they go out and beat Chelsea, I said they'll keep Graham Potter until after the Champions League, but I think that could be they've just brought in a new manager and he's already beaten the guy here. That could be the turning point, but who knows? Overall, I think astute signing for Leeds.
I'm kind of on the fence on this one, because I know there was some sticking points for some of their primary targets, and I'd be interested to see what conversations or what guarantees or whatever have been given to Javi Grazia over the other targets. Again, I know it's going to be conversations regarding wages and recruitment and all this sort of stuff, but I would be interested to see. I'm just only lightly touching on that subject because the reason I wanted to bring that up is because there has been a bit of a honeymoon period for Everton. Obviously, Sean Dyche has been appointed, and first game in charge beat us 1-0. Very solid. Sorry, it was 2-0, I think. We lost. We lost against Everton in Sean Dyche's first game. And one thing that we said, that they would be quite hard to beat defensively. Yep. Now, he's had 4 games in charge, 1-2, lost 2. Yep. Do you think that the honeymoon period for Everton is over, or how do you see this?
I don't think that the weekend result it was fair. A fair reflection of the game. Everton looked like they were in charge for majority of that game. They had Martinez saved a really good goal. They had one off the post, and they had a clearance off the line. Ollie Watkins then scored a penalty, which was less of a penalty than Saka's shout for a penalty was. It got given, which is another in discrepancy within the VAR system, isn't it? But we won't get into that. So he scored, and then the last minute one was just, I think, a lapse in concentration. Two defenders getting mixed up, which happens every now and again. But I think for the majority of that, they were not comfortable, but very competitive. I would say. Their big thing as well, I'm going to say, is a striker. When Calvert-Lewin's fit, they're a different team, and that I think was part of Frank Lampard's problem. Is Calvert-Lewin was never fit. Obviously, they got rid of Richarlison, who was a big component in their goal scoring last year, and they've brought in Neil Maupay, who I don't think knows where the goal is. I think he's one of those, bit like Jolteon. If you put him in midfield, you could see some form of transformation because he's a big lump. But to have him up top, you're not confident that that's going to happen. And there was a number of balls that went in that you think actually Calvert-Lewin's there, that header's going in rather than going to the corner flag. So I don't think it's necessarily over. And I think Everton are growing in confidence and certainly style of play. I just think at the weekend they were very unlucky.
Okay.
Had the clearance off the line not happened, I think that changes the game. And had the VAR gone in the same way that the Saka one did, of not a penalty, I think that also changes the game. So
yeah, I'll be interested to see, because obviously we have got Everton again this week, which is our game in hand. So it'll bring us up level on number of games played. We've been riding on this. We've still got a game in hand bandwagon for quite a while now. But the rescheduled fixture is this Wednesday. So we did get bullied by Everton the first game under Sean Dyche's tenure, but I'm hoping, obviously, with the home advantage for us this time, and we're going to be going out for revenge, I think, in this particular fixture. But obviously, I am interested to see how Everton do for the remainder of the season. Obviously, still teetering around the relegation zone. Still potential for them to go down if a run of fixtures don't go their way. Because obviously we've got the other teams around them picking up points, dropping points. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what happens. Now, every week we do some predictions, and we are playing for the FIFA Day Trophy, Predictions Trophy, currently sitting over Ian's right shoulder, currently in his hands. I am looking forward to reclaiming this title this year. It's looking in my favour, but again, may capitulate towards the end of the season. So you get 3 points for a correct score, 1 point for a correct result. Puzzoint? What the fuck is a puzzoint? 1 point for a correct result. So I was just going to give a bit of a recap over the result, over the scores that we predicted last week. So we have West Ham versus Nottingham, Leicester versus Arsenal, and then obviously the Carabao Cup final. Ian, do you just want to give us a quick breakdown of the West Ham game?
Well, we scored all our goals for the month. So more. I think there was a lot of speculation about Moyes leaving if he lost, and I think at that point he said, "Well, okay, we need to create more chances." I think we had 22 crosses in that game.
1 or 2.
Which is something. It's the West Ham of old. Let's go and put the balls in the box. Took 17 minutes to break the deadlock, but then all of a sudden we score 4. So the quality is there. It has to rely on Moyes playing a positive team and saying go out and just put balls in the box. We've got Man United on Wednesday, and then we've got Brighton. So potentially that win's going to be taken out of ourselves, but it's just one of those that we have to savor those sorts of results. It's not often we get a 4-0. Takes us out of the relegation zone for now. And yeah, hopefully that will give a little bit of confidence to go on and score some more. Because I think if we do start scoring, it will be all right. But without it, going to be a little bit ropey.
Okay, so just very quickly on the predictions, I had 2-1 to West Ham on this one. You had 1-0 to Nottingham Forest. this prediction. Obviously, as you just mentioned, the score 4-0 was the score, so 0 points to you and 1 point to me. Leicester versus Arsenal was a game I was a little bit dubious about last week. Leicester are going through a bit of an okay patch as it stands at the moment, and I thought it was going to be a significantly higher scoring game. For this one, we had Leandro Trossard put the ball into the back of the net, chalked off for a foul. I don't know how I stand with this one because of the whole clear and obvious error business. And I'll touch on that very quickly. In fact, no, I'm not even going to bring up VAR this week because we've droned on about it for the last couple of weeks. So we'll just keep it as it is. So yeah, goal chalked off for a foul on Chris Ward. I think it was Ben White had his arm blocking him from making a save, but it was an amazing finish. But goal chalked off. Goal ruled out for offside for not Bukayo Saka. I think it was Martinelli who put the ball. The ball was played into him, but it was in an offside position, so the goal was chalked off. And then we see Martinelli a couple of minutes later, an amazing little finish to take us to 1-0. Other opportunity, as you mentioned, Bukayo Saka was fouled in the box, and I want to say it. I really want to say it, but I'm not going to say it. Should have gone to VAR. Should have been a penalty.
So Aston Villa's a penalty. Yours definitely was.
Yeah, and it annoys me as well because I'm going to go on about it now. It goes listening to Ref Watch, listening to what they're saying is that it should have been a penalty. Well, why the fuck was it not given as a penalty?
It's a bit like you can go back to Harry Kane's goal against Chelsea. Eric Dyer jumped on top of Mason Mount. It's a foul. Anywhere else in the pitch, it's a foul. Any other team that looks at it, VAR, that's a foul.
I hate the level of inconsistencies and I don't understand why there wasn't a review done by it, unless he's looked at it. Well, mind you, saying that, I'm asking questions of VAR officials that give fucking players handballing it in the penalty box.
Just quickly, on the subject of VAR, the Chelsea, the blokes, there was a big scuffle in that game. Ziyech pushed
Emerson
Romero after being shoved in the back and after being shoved in the face by Longley. He shoved Romero in the shoulder and it slipped and caught his chin. Romero went down like a sack of shit. It took forever. The ref got confirmation from VAR, sent him off, then went over to look at the monitor and rescinded his red card. And it's like, well, hang on, why didn't you do that in the first instance rather than send him off and then make yourself look like a fool? And also, why no one look at the Longley one or the other or Emerson Royal coming in to barge him in his back to try and push him over? Surely both of them are as dangerous conduct as what you was going to send him off for. But VAR didn't look at either of those incidents and only looked at one and gave the wrong. I don't know if they gave the wrong ruling, because how did he get sent off with a message in his ear and then told to look at the monitor?
Yeah,
I just went to mockery the whole thing.
Yeah, again, it's one of these ones where we could probably spend a whole hour talking about the inconsistencies within VAR. If you want to watch that episode, go back and look 2 weeks ago, just before Lee Mason was sacked. We went in for it for a long while. Anyway, back to the predictions. It finished 1-0 winners. Ian, you predicted 2-2. I said 3-2 to Arsenal, so it's a point to me, 0 points to you. And then moving very swiftly on to the Carabao Cup final. Yep. Man United versus Newcastle. Ian, you had 4-1 as a prediction, and I went 4-0. So both a point each on that one. So the total scores for this week, Ian, you're on 1 and I'm on 3. So that moves the season totals. I'm on 46 and you're on 38. So there's still all to play for. We've still got 13, 14, 15, 13 games to go, I think, after Wednesday. So it's still all to play for. There's still a load of points up for grabs, so it could all change. Looking at the fixtures this week, we've got, as I said, Arsenal-Everton on Wednesday, 7:45 at the Emirates. And then we've got Arsenal versus Bournemouth at 3 p.m. on Saturday, and Brighton versus West Ham. So
Are we doing Man United, West Ham as well in the FA Cup?
we can do that one as well if you want to.
That's Wednesday. I know you're not in that competition anymore.
Don't need to, mate. Won it the most amount of times. Right, let me just add that on there. So, man.
Ooh, lots of games. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube what you think the results of these upcoming fixtures are going to be. We're always interested to see if ours match what other fans are thinking as well.
And if you get the correct score, you won't win a prize. You'll just have the knowledge that you beat us. Yeah, exactly. Right, so we'll start off with the Premier League in terms of the Wednesday fixture. So the Man United game, is that on Wednesday as well, or is that?
That's Wednesday, 7:45. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start off with the Premier League game first. So we'll do Arsenal versus Everton. Again, this is going to be a revenge game for us. So as I just mentioned, Everton 2 wins, 2 losses in Sean Dyche's tenure. I would like to think that the home advantage will play us, and I think Thomas Partey's fit again now. So I'll be interested to see if he actually starts that game, knowing how well Jorginho's played in the last few games for us. We dropped Nketiah. We did look more dangerous than I think we have done in the last few weeks.
Yeah,
with Trossard and Martinelli and Saka obviously playing up the top. I would be interested to see if he does stick with that same formation or whether he sticks Nketiah back in. However, I do think that we will concede. Again, I'm going to go for 2-1 to Arsenal on this one.
I was just thinking the same sort of thing. I think it really does depend. I think you're right with Trossard up front and those him and Martinelli switching, him and Saka switching. It was drawing defenders out of place, and they just couldn't keep up with who they were meant to be marking. If he plays Trossard, I think you're going to win. If he doesn't, I think you're going to draw. It's a difficult one. Martinelli, is he out injured now? I know he got a bit of a knock in the game at some point, but
no, I think he's all right.
No news. So okay, I'm gonna go with my initial gut instinct of a 1-1 draw.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a very physical game. And as I said, the 2-0 that Everton lost to Aston Villa, I think, was an unflattering scoreline. I think that game was a lot closer than that. But yeah, we'll wait and see.
Okay, so we'll move on to the FA Cup then. So Man United versus West Ham.
Yeah, at Old Trafford, which is difficult anyway. I think this is the best time for us to play them, if I'm totally honest. And people might go, well, that's a bit silly. They've just won. They're going to be full of confidence. Exactly. They've just won a trophy. So what we have seen in previous seasons is when people win a trophy, the next game, they're not quite at the races. Certainly not all the game anyway. Obviously, there's going to be that celebration. There's going to be, oh, we're really good, oh, this, that, and the other. Actually, we've just won 4-0, so we're going to have a little bit of confidence about us. I think if we go and attack them from the off, we might catch them out. I also think it may be a rotated Manchester United squad for the fact of that team's just won the trophy. Give them a little bit of time off. Have to bring them on, the big boys on, sort of at 60 minutes. I'm going to go 2-1 West Ham.
Okay. I am going to go the opposite to you on that one. I did obviously mention a couple of weeks ago that I thought the momentum was shifting with West Ham, and I think certainly results recently have kind of got in my favour in terms of my thinking. However, I think even with a slightly rotated squad, I think Manchester United possibly may have a bit too much for you. Obviously, just depending on who's playing, but I'm going to go for 2-1 to Man U on that one. So we'll do Brighton West Ham next. We'll stick with West Ham. We'll go Brighton West Ham. We're both 3 o'clock kickoffs, but I'll let you have this one.
Who are we playing? Brighton.
Brighton, yep.
Brighton didn't play this week or this weekend because they were meant to play Newcastle, so they've had a bit of an elongated rest. Obviously, they're flying high at the minute, so the rest won't go unnoticed. They have got Stoke in the cup, and had it been the Tony Pulis Stoke of 10 years ago, I would have said that's a really difficult game. It's not the same caliber physically as it is or as it used to be. It is at Stoke, so there is that. So it's a long travel for them. I think if we lose to Manchester United at the weekend, then we're really going to struggle against Brighton. I think we get turned over. If we win against them, then potentially we're going to give them a game. Brighton always seem to be our bogey team. I've been in a number of pubs. I always seem to be abroad when we play them, and we lose. So I'm going to go for, are we home or away?
You're away.
We're gonna lose 3-1.
Oh, bloody hell!
I don't think I've ever seen. I've been to two games where we've played Brighton. I don't think live. I don't think I've ever seen us win. It's either a loss or a draw. And it's always high scoring.
Okay, well, I've gone slightly more optimistic than your prediction. I've gone for 2-2 on that one.
Okay.
I think, as you're right, rightly said, Brighton are doing pretty well this season. Obviously, the loss of Potter hasn't affected them. If anything, it's made them slightly better. But yeah, I think with the crest that you're on at the moment, I think it'll be damaging on Wednesday, but I think you'll start to pick up momentum again, and yeah, I think you'll pick up a point on that one. So finally, Arsenal versus Bournemouth. Bournemouth currently sitting second from bottom at the moment. Not going too well for them. But again, I think it very much depends on how we play and depending on what injuries are picked up, if any, against Everton. Obviously, I don't want to jinx anything. Any time we can keep players fit, the better. But yeah, I'm hoping for an absolute whitewash of this game. It's a game. Sorry, just recently, I think Arsenal have been lacking a bit of confidence, but I think with the performance that we have put up, certainly against Leicester, we kind of nullified them overall for an attack. So I think the scoreline flattered Leicester a little bit at the weekend. But from what I've saw of that game, it looks as if we're getting back to how we were a couple of weeks ago. So I am going to go for 3-0 to Arsenal on this one.
I don't think you're too far wrong. Bournemouth sitting currently bottom of the form table. Got tonked at the weekend by Manchester City. Look a little bit lackluster at the minute. And I sort of have suffered from that. Bringing in the interim too early. When Gary O'Neill was interim, they were flying, weren't they? They as soon as they brought him in, they've struggled a little bit. They are a hard working side. We'll give them that. But I'm going to say 2-0 to Arsenal. Only I think you'll score more, but I think you'll get some ruled out by VAR.
Yeah, probably. We always do. We'll see what happens. So yes, I think that is everything that I've wanted to cover today. Ian, have you got anything else you want to mention?
Not really. Jake Paul lost in a boxing fight. I've not seen it.
Split decision, I hear.
Split decision. He lost by 2 points on 2 rounds, and he was the only person to score a knockdown. So a little bit interesting in scoring. So I would like to see the fight. From the statistics, I think Tommy Fury hit him more than he hit Tommy Fury. But again, bit of a joke of a fight. No one was really expecting anything mad, but for all the shit that Tommy Fury was talking about, he's not a proper boxer, I'm a proper boxer, to win by a split decision and get knocked down doesn't say that there was that much between them, if I'm totally honest. But yeah, interesting. I'm sure I'll have a look at it when it comes out in a couple of weeks' time on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, that's all I'd say. That and how long till Conte is sacked by Spurs, even though he's not there. His assistants won 4 and 4 now. But
yes.
Yet when Conte's there, and he did come back in the middle of one, they lost. So it wouldn't surprise me if he just sort of went and didn't come back this season.
he's got to have a load of more surgeries and stuff. So Spurs.
I don't think he wants to be there, to be fair. And
No.
I think to see him out to the end of the season, to put his number 2 in charge, even if he's drawing a wage saying I'm not well, I can't be there. They won't sack him in that respect. They'll just say, well, he's had to take a sabbatical. We're playing really well. Everyone's a winner in terms of Spurs. Do you know what I mean? It's
and I'll be interested to see what happens with Graham Potter over the next couple of weeks as well. But if you've got any thoughts from any of the topics that we've spoken about today, please leave a comment down in the comments section. We will get back to you, even if it's just to open a discussion.
Yeah,
as Ian said, if you want to chime in with your predictions as well, feel free to knock them into the comments section. You will find us if you are listening to us on Spotify or wherever you consume your podcast. We do have a YouTube channel. Just go and over to YouTube and type in FDT-TV. Look for the Gold Cup. That is our channel. Share us amongst your friends as well. We are looking to get to at least 100 subscribers. And just very quickly, I wanted to say a very quick thank you for the people that have subscribed to us and stuck with us and have been watching our content. It is very much appreciated. But until then, I've been Michael.
I've been Ian.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.